small boy in rural New Mexico remembers spending time with his granddad on the tractor and taking crops to the local co-op. He remembers the annual farm show in the big city and climbing on all the new machinery. When he was not with his granddad, he was found in the sand pile with his toy tractors, dreaming of driving his own big green tractor. Sadly, Granddad passed away when the young boy was 10, and for his father, this sad time occurred during the busy harvesting season. This season meant a new era was beginning on the farm. A new generation was taking place. This young man will be facing many different struggles than either his father or his granddad faced, including the upkeep of conservation practices, new technology, and current farm policies. These are all areas in which he must become educated to succeed in today's agriculture industry. So we ask ourselves, if agriculture is ever changing, where is agriculture headed today, and how will our farmers prepare for tomorrow's agriculture production? Before we look at what this future farmer has in store, we must understand what his father and grandfather went through as farmers decades ago. When World War I ended in 1918, demand of U.S. products dropped in Europe. American farmers took a drastic hit in prices as the United States saw the results of overproduction. Consequently, 1920 signified the start of a decade of hard times. Many farmers moved to the big cities to find work, and it was estimated that 9% of American farmers were shut down. Was this the worst of hard times? For our future farmer's grandfather, it seems to get worse. From 1932 to 1936, only 21% of the population was related to agriculture production. Yet U.S. crop yields more than doubled. The United States faced their biggest hurdle in all of history at this time, as drought and continuous plowing resulted in the Dust Bowl days. Agriculture exports dropped from $1.9 billion to $765 million, forcing more farmers into bankruptcy. The Great Depression and Dust Bowl proved that conservation was mandatory. Accordingly, conservation still remains a substantial concern in today's agriculture. Since the Dust Bowl days, we find it necessary to maintain sustainability. Comparatively, Pecos Valley is a very dry region, seeing less than 12 inches of rain per year. In order to get the most of the allotted water, farmers use center pivot irrigation, which lessens carriage loss. Many farmers in our region receive subsidies by improving their conservation practices. A subsidy is a type of government assistance that farmers get, whether it's a low-interest loan or a monetary payment. Along with subsidies, in the future we can expect to see new inventions, such as remote sensing, that is used to monitor a farm by satellite technology. This will be a tremendous step in conservation. During the 70s, we were fascinated by the new idea made by the Secretary of Agriculture of planting fence row to fence row and exporting agricultural products all over the world. Agriculture exports jumped to $19.8 billion, and our young farmer's dad benefited greatly from this. This policy that changed during the 70s has pretty much remained the same since. What our secretary did was subsidize for everything grown, and surplus was sold cheap to other countries. The need of subsidies has always been a debate in politics, especially when economic times are tough. Subsidies were first given as part of the New Deal made by President Franklin Roosevelt. Today, these financial supports have been lessened significantly, but still remain in effect. In 1980, only 3.5% of the population was related to agricultural production, and the possibility of another depression hung in the air. Even though economic times were tough, we saw the start of biotechnology in the field, as newly modified types of corn and wheat were introduced. Currently, scientists and farmers are always looking for an easier and faster way to produce food, whether it's through biotechnology or smarter machinery. Biotechnology continues to bring many possibilities to the future of agriculture. The field of transgenics is especially on the rise, as we saw a leap in the areas that produce genetically modified crops go from 3 million to 44 million hectares worldwide. The U.S. produces 87% of all GM crops internationally, and 72% of our major crops are genetically modified. One of the major biotech corporations, Monsanto, states in their mission statement, "We work towards producing more, conserving more, and improving lives through sustainable agriculture." Through transgenic engineering, they have managed weed control through the production of Roundup-ready corn, wheat, and soybeans. Imagine a day when herbicides and pesticides do not exist. Fruit can provide vaccines, or the far-fetched idea of growing meat in a petri dish. Let's now go back to our future farmer, who has grown into a young man. He is ready to cash in the small toy tractors for his own genetically advanced John Deere. no longer playing in his 30-square-foot sand pile, but purchasing a piece of land that he too can produce crops on that will eventually become engrossed in the world's food supply. Tomorrow brings many challenges to the agriculturists as they are faced on not only feeding and clothing the world, but also being relied upon to provide energy resources. Education is mandatory as tomorrow's agriculturist must become a scientist, a marketing agent, a broker, and a mechanic. Increased knowledge in entomology and plant pathology is a must. And most importantly, tomorrow's agriculturists must be able to stay up with current policies so that they too can educate the consumer, as only 2% of the population is related to agriculture production today. That once young farmer is now in his mid-30s and has double the size of the farm that his father and grandfather built. He has learned the tricks to producing crops and staying up on current trends and cycles. He now looks down confidently at his son and thinks to himself, one day he too will be ready to make agriculture his life.